Caroline Coralejo here, cardiac rehab nurse. Today I want to talk about stress and stress management from one of my favorite places to de-stress, the beach. Well, what is stress and why is it one of the risk factors for coronary artery disease? Stress is our body's fight or flight, that automatic response to an actual physical or a perceived threat. It creates extra energy, it produces the blood sugar that we need to respond to that stress, and that's all a good thing. That's how our body has been designed. But when we have stressors chronically activated, it can lead to very serious and significant impact and problems in our health. Those symptoms of stress can create physical, emotional, and mental issues that are going to impact our health and lead to potentially heart attack, stroke, depression, acne, allergies, alcoholism, ulcers, stress ulcers, impotence. There are many different things that chronic stress can have as an impact on our body, and that's why it's so important to become self-aware and to learn how to manage stress. Stressors can be both external, things that are out of our control, and internal, a way that we are perceiving our environment that is leading to added stress. So it's important to differentiate an external stressor and our response to it versus something that we are creating in terms of our perception of our environment and how we manage those things. What are some of the ways that we can manage stress? I'm going to talk about them a little bit more in depth, but in general, we can manage it with a healthy diet and adequate sleep. An average adult should have 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. They're showing studies that that is more and more important, and I know in our fast-paced lives we tend to ignore that. But studies are definitely showing that sleep is restorative, and the second half of our sleep cycle is the most important for restoration. Exercise obviously is an excellent way to de-stress, as well as having a good support system, people that you can go to, that you can share, that you can talk through life's issues, life's ups and downs, as well as having a sense of humor. Finding ways to laugh is an excellent way to de-stress. Massage and relaxation techniques are also something that are very helpful in managing stress. So how do we know if we're experiencing a lot of stress? As I mentioned, there are 3 effects of stress: physical, mental, and emotional. What are the physical effects that we might be experiencing? Dilated pupils are one. Increased perspiration as our body's metabolism increases. Heightened senses of alertness, the blood flow diverting to the heart, the muscles, the major muscles in the brain, so that we are alert and ready for that fight or flight. That increases blood pressure. We're going to have more rapid breathing, decreased blood flow to our extremities and our digestive organs, as that's not needed. It also increases blood sugar, fats, and cholesterol, all of these nutrients that our bodies need if they're going to have to fight or flight. Another significant physical effect is an increase in platelet aggregation and blood clotting. And you can see where platelets, let me explain that a little bit more. Platelets are the sticky parts in our blood, red blood cells, that will create a clot if we are cut or if there is a damage to our body. But you can see how that response of increased clotting can lead to a coronary artery blockage, a clot that sometimes can occlude a coronary artery and lead to a heart attack. Our muscles are also tensed and ready to go. Again, chronic stress over time, without that need for fight or flight, you can see the negative effects. I had a situation where for a period of time I had a very stressful work environment, and I started to really notice the impact. Insomnia, feeling my heart rate, palpitations as I would try to lay down to go to sleep, sometimes feeling a little short of breath through my day as I was trying to get through the workload. I was feeling vertigo, all of these things, and you start to wonder, wow, what's going on? And then when you finally remove the stressor, the triggers, all of those symptoms can go away. So it's so important to identify. What are some of the other emotional and mental effects of stress? Let me go through a few of them. I've got lots of information I want to share here. So emotional can be irritability, can be angry outbursts, can be depression, feeling sad, isolating yourself, critical or self-talk or critical of others, withdrawal, anxiety, restlessness, a tendency to blame others, crying frequently, more frequently than you would normally. Mental effects of stress can be forgetfulness, difficulty concentrating or being easily distracted, worrying all the time, having reduction in creativity or decreased productivity, ruminating on past hurts, issues, habits, hang-ups, or we're worrying about the future. All of these effects are significant in what they produce in our bodies. And in general, the word is inflammation. Stress creates stress hormones, cortisol, and other hormones that are required in a need to respond to something. But if it's chronically activated, meaning we don't have periods that are unstressed or we are allowed to de-stress, chronically activated stress over time can produce very negative effects. And that's why it is one of the important risk factors in coronary artery disease. So let's talk a little bit more about how do we manage this? How do we become self-aware and learn to manage our stress? I mentioned that there are both external and internal triggers for stress. Of course, external are not in our control. What is in our control is our response to them, but that might be situations at work or family dynamics, an actual injury of some sort or a health issue that you're facing, whether it's cancer or stroke. All of these things are things that you did not control or ask for, but we need to learn how to manage. But what are some of those ways that we create stress for ourselves? Well, number one is lack of awareness. You can't impact what you don't know. So if you're not identifying these health effects, what's happening to your body as stress, then you're not realizing that you have agency to impact them, to lower those effects. Our attitude, our point of view on things is a really important way that we can increase our stress. When we have a negative worldview, when we're ruminating on a difficult issue or what's happening to us, that increases those effects of stress on the body. Why do you hear often that gratitude is so important? It's because it creates a different worldview. When we start our day with gratitude, it helps us change our mindset. I'm someone who likes to journal every morning. I found it as a very healthy way to kind of vent what's on my heart, things that are heavy, what I'm going through, working through my own healing journey. And one thing that I have definitely changed and seen a difference is starting with gratitude. There are days where I wake up and I've got something on my heart and I want to just vent it out in my journal. But I stop and I start with gratitude. And you know, by the time I list 5 or 6 things that I'm grateful for, that level of venting has decreased. And I have already a new perspective. Inflexibility is another way that we can create a lot of stress for ourselves. If we are a very rigid person, if we have to have the same pattern day to day of our routines, well, that's just not necessarily going to happen, right? Because others around us, work, different things are going to impact our day. So when we are very rigid and inflexible, it creates an internal stress or anxiety that's going to impact you. Competition is another one. If you feel like your life is all about keeping up with the Joneses or competing or getting that next best thing, there's a lot of drive that is created, a lot of stress hormones in order to maintain that. Perfectionism is one I know well. Perfectionism, I've learned over time, is not the best thing. It's really can be a people-pleasing that is trying to create a standard. It's a standard of expectation for not only myself and others, that wants to make sure that not only is everybody else okay, but if everybody else is okay, then I'm okay as well. So perfectionism can just create a level of expectation that can create a lot of added stress. A low self-concept is another one. When we have that internal talk that is beating ourselves up, that is saying we're not going to do what we need to do, or we just don't have what it takes, or we're going to fail again, all of those negative self-talk comments, again, can impact us. It has a negative side of our perception that can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Unrealistic expectations is another one. When we have unrealistic expectations, again, this kind of ties in with perfectionism, on ourselves and on others, when they're not met, it ends up leading to some resentment. Sometimes unrealistic expectations are when we see somebody else doing something that we wish we were doing. Maybe they are coming home from work and relaxing or playing with the kids, and we're thinking about all the chores and everything that we need to do around the house and all that needs done and the bills needing paid, and we're building internal resentment because of our expectation of this other person. What we need to do is just share that maybe we've got things we would like to do together, rather than feeling like, hey, I'm not getting to do that. So looking at whether our expectations are of ourselves and others around us are realistic or are even being communicated. Unresolved issues is another one. When we have unfinished business, as they say, some of that can be taking your work home with you, not giving yourself a space for yourself, for relaxation, keeping that level of stress that work brings coming home with you. Another one is taking home to work with you. When there's unresolved conflict or family dynamics, or even just a big to-do list of things that are happening around the home, and we take that stress into work with us, we can understand how we're not going to be as attentive or as productive and able to give our all in the work setting. Another one is value conflicts. We all have values and beliefs, and when those are in conflict with a situation or a circumstance, that creates an internal stress and internal anxiety. For example, if you value honesty and integrity and you're in a relationship where there is deception and there isn't honest, vulnerable communication, that can create a lot of anxiety, a lot of internal stress when you feel like it's ongoing and your needs are not being met. And lastly, poor communication skills. Of course, this sort of ties into all of these. When we don't have the communication skills to express our needs or to listen well to others, we can understand how in the home as well as at work, this can create a lot of conflict that adds to our stress. I want to reference a study that was done in the Journal of Circulation in March 2016 that looked at stress management training may help cardiac rehab patients. And what they did is they took 151 heart patients that were aged 36 to 84. They received either a 12-week cardiac rehab program alone, or the same program along with a 90-minute group session on stress management. They had another 75 patients that were in a control group that didn't have any cardiac rehab. After the follow-up of more than 3 years, problems such as heart attack, stroke, recurrent chest pains requiring hospitalization, and death had occurred in 18% of the cardiac rehab or / stress management group. That compared to 33% of the patients in the cardiac rehab only group and 47% of the patients in the control group. So you can see that those who had a combination of a cardiac rehabilitation program along with stress management techniques being taught had better results of reduced events, reduced risk factors, reduced hospitalization, and better overall general health. An unfortunate statistic is that only 25 to 30% of patients with coronary artery disease or have the cardiac interventions that are eligible for cardiac rehab actually attend and complete a program. Only 25 to 30%, when many studies have shown the benefits of going through a cardiac rehab program. It's not only the building of cardiovascular fitness, but the education that takes place in regard to all of the risk factors and risk factor management, learning how to continue. The whole goal of cardiac rehab is to transition someone into their own home exercise program and with new techniques on how to manage those risk factors. Okay, so I mentioned that the general techniques for managing stress are diet, sleep, exercise, a good support system, humor, massage, and relaxation techniques. So what are some simple relaxation techniques that you can do and incorporate into your daily activity? It can be as little as having 1 minute's time to do some deep breathing relaxation, to having an hour-long massage, or learning a progressive relaxation meditation type technique that can be anywhere from 5, 15, 20 minutes. A simple technique that I will often teach our cardiac rehab clients is what I call, or what is called, the 4-4-4. They say that the Navy SEALs use this technique when they are in a high stress situation and they need to calm the mind, slow down the body's response, bring clarity and focus. And it is a simple breathing technique of a slow, close your eyes, a slow 4-second inhale through the nose, hold for 4 seconds, a slow exhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and repeat that 4 times. I like to envision a box, so a slow inhale, exhale, hold 1, 2, 3, 4. I have seen this work so effectively when our clients come in for their cardiac rehab session and their blood pressure's high and they're hurrying in. I've seen it drop blood pressure by 30 points. It is so effective, and it is easy to learn and practice and incorporate 3 or 4 or 5 times throughout your day. Is a simple way, and it actually resets the nervous system from that fight or flight to our calmer parasympathetic digestive, active system that works well in the calmer environment. Now, if you're having a full-blown panic attack, a simple relaxation breathing technique won't necessarily calm that. That is something that might require learning what is the cause of those panic attacks, maybe having a professional therapist to work with you on that. So that's one disadvantage where a simple relaxation breathing technique might not work. Another method is progressive muscle relaxation. This can relieve muscle tension, can take only 5 or 10 minutes, where you practice and learn how to slowly, starting maybe from your toes, working your way up through the face, neck, shoulder muscles, of concentrating on tightening and relaxing and creating reduced muscle tension. All of these different techniques may work better for one person, not so much for another. So finding what works for you is important. Autogenics is another method that's a general relaxation sleep aid. Again, can take 10 to 15 minutes. I've used something similar to this where you can, if you're having trouble falling asleep, you can lay flat on your back. You can just let your muscles feel heavy and warm. And you can start with 10 very big, deep breaths, long breaths, and then just relax. I actually even hold my breath after those, just let my body relax, and before I know it, I'm asleep. So that's one different type of a method. Again, meditation is another way to relieve muscle stress. There are so many aids and apps out there for meditation from anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. Tapping is another way. You can find that on YouTube where you actually can tap some of the zones of stress in our body and use a kind of a self-talk, a positive self-talk that can relieve anxiety. And biofeedback is another one where you actually can learn with the aid of machines giving you feedback how to produce a relaxed state in your body. So there's quite a range from things that are free and easily accessible to something that might be more structured. Have you heard of the story about the important things in life? It kind of goes like this. There was a philosophy professor who came into his class and had a jar sitting in the front on the desk. Without any words, he started to fill the jar with large rocks, filled it to the top, and he asked his class, "Is the jar full?" And they said yes. Then he took a box of small pebbles and he slowly added them into the jar until it came to the top. He again asked his class, "Well, now is the jar full?" And they said yes. Then he took a smaller container of sand and he let the sand shift its way through the rocks and the pebbles until the jar was full. So a third time he asked his class, "Well, is the jar full now?" And they resoundingly said, "Yes, it's full." Now the professor said, "I want you to recognize what this jar represents. The rocks are the big things, the important things in life. Your partner, your children, your family, what's important to you, your health. The pebbles represent the smaller things that are still important to you and that matter, like your job, your house, your car, things we all need to maintain. Everything else, the sand, is the small stuff." If you put the sand in your jar of life first, all the small things, and you let them impact your life in such a way that it creates so much stress and worry, you lose out on what you need to have to give to those important things, the important things in life, like your partner, like your children, like your own health, yourself. So it is important to look at how are we filling our own tanks. Are we taking the time to manage our stress? Are we taking the time for self-care, whether that's reading and quiet time and journaling, our faith, taking a walk in nature, taking the time, taking a day out just to sit and relax at the beach, watching a funny movie with family or friends and just laughing, playing games. There's so many ways that we can bring joy into our life. So I want to end by just saying, making sure that you do what matters, that you look at what are the important things for you in life. Have a great day. Hope you get to the beach soon, or the mountains, or your favorite place.